Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, I've got another exciting tale to share with you, and it's all about a cursed doll. Now, what makes this story even more gripping is that it's based on true events. I first heard about it from a colleague of mine, and trust me, it's enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. So, stick with me until the very end, because I've got a particularly fascinating twist to add. My own personal experience with the cursed doll. So, grab your favorite snacks, get comfy, and let's dive right in. First story. I've had a painting follow me for the past 10 years. It all began when my first partner and I stumbled upon it in an old house while helping my sister tear it down for a friend. I'm pretty sure it's just a print or copy. It's not particularly remarkable, just a pale-colored print of a little girl seen from behind, standing in a field. The peculiar thing about it is that staring at it for more than a few seconds makes some people, including myself, feel uncomfortable. It's not a universal experience, but for those it affects, there's this unsettling sensation, like there's something in the center that you're not seeing. It's hard to explain. So the strange part started when I realized I didn't recall bringing the painting home with us. Yet, when we went to pack up and move a few months later, there it was among our stuff, tucked away behind other things. I'm a bit forgetful, so I chalked it up to my absent-mindedness. I vaguely remember setting it aside because my partner didn't want it, and I didn't care either way. But then, a month after settling into our new place, I found it again, tucked behind some random items. This pattern continued even after that relationship ended badly, and I found myself bouncing between friends' couches with just 3 measly boxes of belongings my ex gave me. I went through those boxes multiple times, and the print wasn't in any of them. Despite not seeing it during that time, it reappeared when I met my now husband and we moved in together. It was nestled among our belongings yet again, this time in a closet. When I shared this story with my husband, we laughed it off, but decided to keep the print on a shelf. We've moved twice since then, and each time it's made its way with us. I don't recall ever packing it specifically, but it always seems to be somewhere among our things. I've grown accustomed to its presence, though I still feel uneasy when I stare at it for too long. I've never done anything with it, but lately I've been considering getting it framed. It's become a quirky part of our lives, seemingly content to follow us wherever we go. Second story. I've always been fascinated with haunted items, but never found the courage to buy one until recently. I purchased a haunted doll on eBay. The doll's name was Isabel, and she didn't have a crazy backstory. She had long auburn hair and piercing green eyes. She was the perfect choice, or so I thought. Isabel arrived in my mailbox on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. She looked even more beautiful in person than in pictures. I was excited to have her in my possession and eager to see if I would experience anything paranormal. But I had no idea what I had gotten myself into. I sat Isabel on my antique dresser in my bedroom and went about my day like normal. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. I went to bed and woke up the next morning, still nothing. The next night, however, everything changed. I went to bed around my usual time. During the night, I heard a loud noise. I live in an apartment, so I figured it was the people above me causing a ruckus. I shut my eyes and drifted back off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and looked directly at Isabel. Her legs were crossed. I didn't cross her legs, and no one else had been in my apartment to cross them. I freaked out and hurried off to work. When I arrived home that evening, I went back into my bedroom to relax. Isabel's legs were uncrossed. I hadn't uncrossed them. I had left them crossed and didn't touch her. What was happening? How was a doll crossing and uncrossing her legs on her own? Was I losing my mind? I went to bed that night with worry. I was worried about what I would wake up to. Would Isabel's legs be in a different position? I awoke that morning to the sound of my alarm buzzing. I immediately looked over to my dresser, and Isabel wasn't there. I live alone, and no one had been in my apartment. Where was Isabel? I jumped up out of bed and started looking all around my room. I glanced over to my bed, and Isabel was there. Isabel was lying in my bed, staring up at the ceiling. Had she been in my bed all night? How did she get there? I ran out of my bedroom, grabbed my keys, and ran outside. I'm currently sitting in a McDonald's parking lot near my apartment complex, typing this. I didn't even want to be sitting in the driveway of my apartment because I'm so freaked out. How did Isabel get into my bed? Is she playing games with me? Or am I losing my mind? I'm terrified to go back in there and find Isabel, wherever she may be next. I contacted the lady that sold me the doll, and she said absolutely no returns. A part of me wants to get rid of her, while another is scared to do so. I don't know what to do. Third story. I'm a 16-year-old male and usually don't experience more than seeing a few shadows and hearing some sounds in the house here and there, just the basic stuff. But I do have one story that I've never been able to explain and still have no explanation for. Children are way more susceptible to the paranormal than adults are, as a lot of you may know. As a child, I never really had any experiences, nor do I really remember my childhood much in the first place. This one memory stands out the most, yet I don't even remember exactly when it occurred or what age I was at the time. But it was during the time I was living with my dad at my grandpa's old house, so I must have been about 5 or 6. I think my mom was at work. She worked late nights and usually wasn't home until dawn. I was fast asleep on the couch one night. The small 2000s TV was on and was staticky and bright. It was the only light in the room, bright enough to light up the rooms connected to the living room, as we lived in a small house. I was asleep on the couch, and I sensed something was in front of me, which caused me to wake up. When I woke up, I saw one of my toys standing in front of me on the coffee table, just staring at me. It was one of those old action figure toys that had buttons on its chest that you could push, and it would make sounds. When I opened my eyes, it opened its eyes. As soon as it opened its eyes, I ran to my dad's room and jumped on the bed. These toys can't walk, but the thing was chasing me. When I got onto the bed, it tried to follow, but couldn't. Instead, it crawled under my bed. I just went back to sleep. The next morning, I got up to see if the toy was still under the bed. I couldn't see it, but one of my pet rabbits and some wooden boards were stacked underneath. I reached in to pet my rabbit, and he was stiff. I looked at his face and had no idea what happened. My rabbit had his mouth and eyes wide open in a natural, relaxed position, sitting his head up as if he had no time to scream, and then he was just frozen in place. The toy was nowhere to be seen. I haven't seen that toy in years. It's a bit ironic, considering all the theories about those action figures. A few years after the incident, I told my dad quite a few times, but each time he seemed to not remember. Until a few months ago, I mentioned it to him again, but this time got a completely different response. My dad has had the exact same thing happen to him as a child with a toy car. He said that he had evidence, though. He wasn't the only one to see it. He had a sibling who was with him at the time that it happened, and his brother had actually been bitten by the thing. It makes me wonder what would have happened to me if I hadn't had the instinct to run. I might have ended up like my rabbit. I still miss him. Fourth story. My partner Alex and I went on holiday to Mexico in April 6 years ago. Upon coming back, I was going through our suitcase to wash various items of clothing and came across a tiny statue of what looked like a woman on her knees praying to the sun. I asked Alex about this, and they said that they and another person from the group of friends that we went with found it leaning against a tree stump. Alex, being Alex, thought that this statue was the best thing since sliced bread and shoved it in their suitcase to bring it home with us. I thought this was weird, as the statue itself was made from wood and wasn't very flattering. Alex placed it on the table in the hallway, in between our scented candles. I'd say about a week later, I was coming downstairs through the hallway and into our living room when I noticed that it seemed colder by the table. I took this to there being a draft coming in from the front door and made sure I shut the living room door behind me in an attempt to keep it from coming in. There, small things started to happen. My keys, that I always put on a hook in the kitchen, would be in the middle of the living room floor, resting on the rug when I would wake up. We have no pets, and I know Alex wouldn't do something so petty to try and mess with me. I had to keep changing light bulbs in the hallway. The phone that was also on this table would go off randomly at all times of the day. I'd answer and hear static, sometimes faint mumbling over it. There were times when I would get ready for bed and just about to lay my head down on the pillow, and I'd pull out that wooden statue. Somehow it had made its way under my pillow, and this happened at least 5 to 7 times. I was home alone one night, watching TV in the living room, when I saw a shape of black smoke in the hallway, lingering there as if it were watching me. It was in the TV reflection. I dared not move my head towards it and acted like I was totally engrossed in the show I was watching. I could see it from the corner of my eye, though, but was too afraid to move. I saw it slowly fade away and move further into the hallway. Me being a big scaredy cat, I didn't move and carried on watching my show. I brushed it off, thinking that if I show no interest, perhaps it would go away. When Alex got home, I asked them if they wanted to go grab McDonald's to get a McFlurry. They jumped at the chance. I wanted to get out of the house to talk about what I saw. Sitting there in the car park, I blurted out the events of the night. They sat quietly. I expected them to not believe me and laugh, but Alex said that they had seen the smoke too. But sometimes it was in the doorway. When they woke up, they would rub their eyes and it would still be there, then vanish. We thought about the timeline and realized that all of this happened shortly after finding the statue in the suitcase. That night, when we got back, we took the statue into the garden and burnt it. Nothing
happened since, and the house somehow feels lighter and warmer.
Fifth story. I had a puppet almost identical to this. I was a big fan of a certain TV show and loved it at first. In my room, I had bunk beds, and I slept on the bottom bunk. In the top bunk, I kept all of my favorite toys and stuffed animals. I'd often leave them in really weird formations after having battles and the like. But I always remembered to leave certain ones in certain places because they were my favorites, namely my action figures and the puppet. A few months after getting this puppet, though, I started to have some really terrible nightmares about it. Not the "are you afraid of the dark" kind of 90s nightmares for kids, but truly graphic and horrible dreams where someone had broken into our house and made me watch them torture my family while they laughed. You know, scarring stuff. So I told my parents, and they immediately got rid of it. This apparently just meant they hid it in the garage, since I couldn't see this stuff stored up that high anyway. A few weeks later, I woke up to all my action figures on the floor. Confused, but maybe I shook the bed a bunch in my sleep. And a few days after this, my older sister woke my parents up screaming about a dream she had. It was nearly identical to the dream I'd told them about, but I knew she'd never heard it. My parents knew this too, and my mother looked genuinely horrified. I got screamed at for telling my sister about such horrible things. But once it became clear that I really hadn't told her, my mom got even more concerned. I watched her go into the garage, grab the puppet, put it in a trash bag, and throw it in the dumpster. For years, I'd wake up, and my stuffed animals would be in really odd places, in places I knew I hadn't left them, places I would never have left them. I was obsessed when I was 12. I found the puppet in a toy box in the garage. My mom said my dad must have come home, seen it in the trash, and pulled it out. But he doesn't remember ever doing that. He swears he didn't even know she threw it away, let alone try to pull it out. And that wraps up our journey into the mysterious world of the cursed doll. I've shared with you the captivating accounts I've gathered, including my own hair-raising encounter. But remember, the mysteries of the supernatural often leave us with more questions than answers. So, until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and may your dreams be free of haunted dolls. Thanks for joining me, and see you in the next adventure.